Hey everybody, welcome to BBQ Champs Live. It's going to be a great show tonight as we have Miss Sunny Moody with us. And I'm looking so forward to talking to this up-and-coming SEA steak phenomenon. She has been absolutely on a tear here lately, and we are honored to have her as part of BBQ Champs Academy Live. See, we got a lot of folks already coming in. We do appreciate you being here. I think we're going to have a fun show, and we hope we have a lot of questions that's asked for Miss Sunny to answer. Not only is she an incredible, accomplished female steak cooker, but she's also an SEA judge. And so this is going to be a great opportunity for us to ask her some questions. And I've already got one question in mind for her that somebody submitted to me earlier today. And we're going to kind of pick her brain a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes in the SEA state competitions. I certainly do want to make sure I always give a shout out to our partners. We could not do what will you do without these incredible partners? We've got Be Extreme Barbecue, such a huge part, I know, of the SEA, as they're a sponsor of that. So we certainly do appreciate their team that they've got with Be Extreme. The partners actually on B&B Charcoal is partners with the SCA, but we're certainly happy for Be Extreme. They had another great outing with a couple of their rubs that they entered into the Barbecue News magazine. I can't recall, and Danny will probably correct me for sure, but I think they had a 7th and a 10th place. I know one of them was their new fajita dust that came out. If you have not tried that stuff, you absolutely need to. It is phenomenal. Also, our good friend Jason at Papa Joe Grilling Supply, appreciate him jumping on with us as well and carrying a lot of the rubs and stuff that our guys have using in their class. My good buddy Brian Crawford at Lone Star Barbecue Pro Shop and Crawford's Barbecue Pit product. I think Brian also had one of his rubs. These Texas guys are just crushing it with the rubs that they're putting out, and we certainly want to congratulate Brian on another awesome job. You know, earlier this year at the American Royal, he had a best rub on the planet with his season all. Absolutely amazing product. Texas Pepper Jelly with Craig Cherry. My good friend Gunnar Wilhelm, David with Gunnar Wilhelm. A lot of you cookers that have bought classes from us, seen that we've been giving you guys an incredible deal that we worked with David during this holiday season. He's got a huge sale on all of his knives, and he gave our customers a really big discount for those that have bought our classes, and I hope that y'all have taken advantage of that as well. One of our newest sponsors is TAPAQ. I tell you what, the fan assist fan that they have for stoking the fire and keeping the fire going, the fire management part of it, and the wireless probes that they have are absolutely phenomenal. I got a chance to play around with them. I'm going to be doing a video for them and a little overall educational video just to show everybody about it, but it's absolutely amazing. And then our buddy Kyle at Barbecue News Magazine, we certainly do appreciate him as well, and everything that he does for all the cooks and SCA and also in the barbecue. Well, we've got quite a few folks coming in. As you're here, let us know. And there's my buddy, Mr. Kevin. How are you doing, buddy? So great to have you here. There's Mr. Matt Overson. I see that he's on. Paul Brown. There's my buddy, Mr. Terry. So many people are coming on. There's Miss Consistency. How are you doing, Marissa? So glad to see you joining the ladies here. We got Sugar's Barbecue, and certainly glad to have you on board with us tonight. Let us know if you're coming on. We've got quite a few folks here. There's Mr. Ronald Burns himself, Mr. Hottie Toddy. And I tell you what, I'm not going to go on too much longer. We got to get this young lady on here. This young lady right here, Miss Sunny Moody. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. So glad to have you part of our Barbecue Champs Academy show. We got a lot of folks coming on. A lot of names you probably already have seen. And Mr. Hottie Toddy himself, he's on here. Hopefully we're going to have John be able to join us here in just a minute. And there's Danny with Be Extreme. Let's see, we hit all 3 categories, but only 3 top 10. Well, Danny, congratulations on that. I knew I had just read what you had posted earlier in the day, and I just didn't get a chance to jot it down. I was driving down the road, and I pulled over, sitting at a red light, and I was kind of going through some messages and saw it. So, well, there's the man right there. So we was wondering if he was going to make it on. So We got a lot of folks on tonight. There's my buddy, Mr. Lee Hickle, IBCA guru that's been crushing it in the last couple of years. So I've told everybody if they've got questions for you that we want to hear about it. And in the meantime, we're gonna go ahead and just kind of get into introducing you. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Miss Sunny. How did you get started? I know it's Moodswing Barbecue, so I'm assuming at some point in time you had some kind of influence in barbecue, and then now I see you're just, this up-and-coming SCA steak cooker. So tell me about it.
Yeah, my husband actually started the whole Moodswing barbecue thing. He started off as a KCBS judge and then decided he was going to build his own reverse flow smoker, which ended up being like a 1,000-gallon tank on a trailer, and we started into the competition world and catering. But how I got started was kind of a little bit of a fiery event.
Uh-oh.
My husband had to work late one night, and he had meat prepared and already ready, and he called me and he was like, hey, just go turn on the Traeger, just a little Traeger pellet smoker, shouldn't be a big deal. Go turn on the Traeger, let it smoke for 5 minutes, and then put the meat on. So I did just that. I pushed the button and left and came back 5 minutes later, and the whole thing was engulfed in flames. And I was like, okay, this is not good. So I FaceTimed him, and I'm like, I don't think something's right, because the whole smoker's on fire. And he's like, no, there's supposed to be a little bit of flame in the bottom of it. And I'm like, And I turned the camera around, and I'm like, the whole thing's engulfed in flames. And he's like, yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, that's not.
I tried to like pull it away from the house and like get it out as best as I could. And I was like, this is not my deal. Like, I do not do barbecue.
That is hilarious. So,
but
wow.
he made me try again. He's like, oh, you're not going down like that. He goes, you're going to get back in and you're going to learn this. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
It's supposed to be easy, right? It's a pellet cooker. Push a button and you're done. So, oh, goodness gracious. Wow. So that's how you got in. You started doing some KCBS barbecue. Yeah. All right. And
we actually started winning on that circuit, and we were loving it. And then Sterling Smith, our good friend, actually ended up bringing the SCA with Brett Galloway to Arizona, and brand new. And so we were like, well, let's just give it a try. It's a little day competition and a lot cheaper than KCBS.
Right.
So we were like, well, let's just give it a shot. And so I was just Jeff's assistant at this point. And so I was like, sure, I did all the ancillary categories and stuff, and he handled the steak, and I just observed him, and he ended up placing that day. And then as we went along, our good friends like Smitty and Josh Day and some of the others reached out, and they're like, Sunny, you just need to compete on your own. And I'm like, that's funny. Like, that's not going to happen. And they're like, no, you know your stuff. And I'm kind of a knowledge nerd, so I want to know the nitty gritty about everything and why the steak does what it does or whatever. And they're like, you know a little too much to just stand on the sidelines. So you need to compete and try to win against Jeff. And I'm like, oh, that could be fun.
Yeah. And I do know somebody that's got a little bit of competitive spirit in them. So, goodness.
So we went with that, and I just started competing against Jeff, and it kind of just became a competition between the two of us. My goal was just to beat him because he's so knowledgeable, like so knowledgeable. And I'm like, gosh, dang it, I'm going to take him down. Like,
that is hilarious.
So actually it was my second competition. Right after we moved to Tennessee, we took a while off last fall, and we just got back in after COVID hit, and we're like, well, let's just go do some SCA comps because the KCBS hadn't opened back up yet.
Shut down.
Yeah. So we're like, well, let's try to meet some people and see how this works out here. So we went down to Albertville, and again, like, actually there was a breaking point. Like, I was focused on my fitness business because I'm a personal trainer, and my business coach was like, I want you to work full time for me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, this is an incredible opportunity, but I can't manage all three. I can't do barbecue and fitness and work for him and a family.
Right.
So I let him know, I'm like, I just need the weekend to just think about this. And, Jeff and I had been thinking about it for a while and praying about it. And I was like, okay, if I don't do well at this competition, barbecue is not my thing. Like, I'm going a different route. So we went to Albertville, and there were 76 teams there, and I didn't know a single one. Neither did Jeff, because we came from Arizona.
Right.
And so we're like, let's just have fun and cook a steak. And that's exactly what we did. And my number was called for first place. And
wow.
As I went running up there, like the adrenaline just got to me, and I was like, holy crap, I just beat my husband. Like, it wasn't you just beat 76 of the big names in SCA. It was, you just beat your husband. And I'm like, I did it.
That's awesome. Was that your first or second competition?
That was my second on my own.
Second on your own, and you got a first place.
Yeah.
And I saw that one video that you come flying by the screen. I was like, it looked like Flash Gordon going by. So now is that
was my first place.
What did you win in that one?
250-pound fire hydrant.
Yeah, I see. I think Jim hit it best here when he showed this just a second ago when you was talking about the pit going on, the pellet cooker on fire. So that's why you were so happy to get the fire hydrant.
Right.
So
I got something to put the flames out.
Exactly. I mean, how fitting is that? You burn up stuff, you catch the barbecue. You're probably the only person that's ever caught a pellet cooker on fire doing what your husband told you, push the button, and then, you come back, paybacks, hey, you don't want me to barbecue, let me just get in steaks and I'll just spank you a little bit and you're going to like it. So that is too funny. So, well, we got a lot of folks steadily coming on. There's our buddy Mark Lambert. Glad to have you here, Mark. So many people are steadily coming on. If you got any questions or anything for Sunny, certainly let us know. That is an awesome story. So that's how you got started. Was that this year or was that last year?
That was this May or June.
May or June. And that was your second competition?
That was my second on my own.
On your own. Okay. Man, that is phenomenal. So
now, I had practiced a lot on my own. Like Sterling Smith and a whole bunch of my friends would, Kyle Madwowski and all these other guys would message me and they're like, hey, try this on your steak. And Jeff's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm not telling you. Like, do your own thing. Like, it was a big competition just between the two of us.
Right.
And then he would do his own thing, and he's like, are you doing a salt brine? And I'm like, yes, I am. So whatever, you can go marinate, whatever. I tried multiple different things, different flavor profiles, just, everything that I could try out. And we would cook them up, and we'd have a whole bunch of friends over and would let them taste them. And we're like, do you like one or two? Like, and they're like, well, whose is whose? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Do you like one or two? And pretty much most of the time I would take it unless I was trying something like wild and crazy. Then Jeff, he would totally win.
That is too funny right there. Well, I know this. You have had an amazing journey. You say you've only cooked a handful of competitions, and you told me this. You've had in the last 15 competitions, which I'm assuming is pretty much, most of them are this year. 10 out of your last 15 competitions, you finished in the top 10. And for that, major congratulations, because that is tough to do, especially with the new cook. Now, it was funny. I was kind of talking to John, and the other day, or I think it was yesterday, or the day before yesterday, and he said, who are you going to have on your show? Because we always try to help each other out, and all those that are on our show, I certainly want to make sure everybody goes on Monday night at 7 o'clock and watch the Arcasipi show that John and Ronald put out. They do a phenomenal job on that. You got the two blockbuster shows on Monday and Tuesday night with John starting the week off and me trying to come in, and he's a tough act to follow as always. So him and Mr. Ronald Burns, them two put on a great show with Arcasipi Smoke Live. So make sure that you join them. But I was talking to him, and he said, who you going to have on? I said, well, I got Sunny on here. And he said, oh, that's going to be a good one. And I was like, yeah. And I know that you are one of the cookers on Team Arcasipi. And he said, ask her about, how she got that dead ass last. And I was like, he said, of all times, he said, I was giving away a class for dead ass last. And he said, and of all people that won it, Sunny won it. And I was like, really? And then I was asking, I said, so was you that bad? And I want you to tell me the story of how you won the dead ass last award to get John Lindsay steak class.
Okay, so
it was real simple. You forgot something, didn't you?
Yeah, pretty much.
And what did you forget? Did you forget
It
to
was
put a steak in the
actually-
box?
No, not quite that bad. I left a string on and got disqualified. So it was a double that day, right after winning first place, and it was the next cook-off. Tons of pressure, like everybody's up there going, "Oh, it's fire hydrant lady. Oh, it's fire hydrant. Oh, are you going to kick our butt today?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is like nerve-wracking." So I had, like, my nerves were high, and everything that could go wrong was going wrong. Like,
Right.
my charcoal wouldn't light, and all this other stuff was just going wrong. And I told Jeff, I'm like, "It's just not my day." And he's like, "What do you mean it's just not your day?" And I'm like, "Just trust me, it's just not my day." So in the first steak, I actually ended up placing 11th, but Jeff placed, like, I want to say 3rd or 4th. And then in the second steak, didn't hear my number called, and Danny, the rep, came up to me afterwards, and he was like, "Sunny, what was your number?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't even want to know." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What did I do?" And he's like, just show me your ticket." And I showed him my ticket, and he's like, "Girl, did you forget to take a string off your steak?" And I'm like, "Most likely." That's just how the day was going.
Wow.
And he was like, "I can't believe you did that." And I'm like, "I can today. I can believe I did that today. But
Wow.
Yes, I will learn from this." And he's like, "Well, you just won a class from John Lindsay." And I'm like, "No, I didn't." And he's like, "Yeah, he's giving away to the person that took Deadass class." And I'm like, "Oh, that's me. I just scored major." I'm like, "I would take that any day."
Now you didn't plan that in any way, shape, or form, because I know you had told me that you was trying to get Jeff to let you take one of our classes on barbecue. No, you don't need it. You don't need it. So this wasn't just a way to show Jeff, "Look, I'm going to get that class one way or another." So
no.
Okay.
We actually have a bet between us. Usually at every competition, it's like, if I win, I win something, or he has to do something crazy. And then, or Jeff was like, "Oh, you have to eat something crazy that I hate," or,
right.
We just have weird competitions between us. And so that particular one, I was actually trying to win a new grill. I was definitely not trying to get disqualified.
Well, okay, so you wanted to take a class from Barbecue Champs. You got the Dead Ass Last Award. You got John Lindsay's class, and this was probably about your 3rd cook-off. How did you do after? Did you take away something from John's class? Did you start really stepping up, and is that where all of a sudden the win started coming?
I didn't really have to change a lot. I did notice on my cooks and stuff that I was pulling a back-end heat. So I switched that up. I was watching our scores. We kind of keep track of all of our scores and on a spreadsheet, and then we, analyze them and stuff, Jeff and I together. So we do work as a team and analyze everything that we're doing as a team.
Right.
But even though we compete separately and we make seasons separately and, do things totally different than each other, we're still trying to figure out, what the best technique is for us. So coming from John's class, I learned to put toothpicks in so that I wouldn't forget my string.
There you go. That is too funny.
I didn't, I wouldn't say that I was doing things totally different than what he was. So it was kind of a nice confirmation to me that I was on the right track.
Right.
But it was nice because then I could go to him and ask him questions, and, he could help me tweak a few things or whatever I was struggling with at the time, which was really nice. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a lot of cookers and got several of them on here that have taken classes and have done very, very well. And I'm glad that you're part of this team. I mean, I know you're a very accomplished cook. I know.
Yeah, and I had to learn the hard way. Like, these people now can come and take a class from all these amazing competitors and award winners,
right,
and learn, the basics like that. Like, I had to go through trying every single thing, like trying salt brining and trying marinating and, moo glue. I moo glued. I'm going to admit it. I moo glued. Like,
you got to try everything.
All the different kinds of things. I jacquarded. I've tried everything. But,
right,
you finally find something that sticks and is working. You don't mess with it. Don't fix something that's not broken. So.
Right. Still cooking steak on a pellet cooker? No. I don't think so. So
no. I use a PK grill right now.
Use a PK grill. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the classes have definitely helped the fast track of putting people on quick. There's a lot of old school people that pioneered this stuff. You start getting back into the Terry Rohn and his class has done amazing for so many. You got the new up and coming young guy, Matt Overson, who has done absolutely amazing in what he has accomplished. So many amazing cooks. And to me, it is so awesome to see more and more girl cookers coming about because, there wasn't a whole lot in the beginning.
No.
And there was one female cooker that she jumped in there with the boys at a very early time, and I'm hoping she's paved the way for a lot more to come in. And I'm not so sure if you exactly know, but there's one of them right there, Miss Shauna Rapolo. So
Hi.
Hey.
And I figured this would be kind of cool to get you two together. Because I'm telling you right now, I think I could just close myself out of this screen and leave y'all in here, and this would be one heck of a show that may go to midnight tonight. So
that's right. We got this. We got this, Mike.
Yeah, just go on and kick off, and there we go. So Shauna, damn best. There we go. So original gangster kicking ass machine. She done kicked all of y'all's asses up and down the trail each year. So yes, it is great.
Friend.
Let's see. There was another one. I think it was Frank that had posted earlier, and here we go. Tell us about y'all girls competing in the SCA. I think that is awesome. So I saw that question. I knew that I was going to bring Shauna in. So we've heard a lot about Sunny and how well she's done. We've had Shauna on the show here about a month ago, and I think you have helped pave the way, Shauna, for a lot of these female cookers that are coming on now. That I love the hashtag Silly Boy Steaks are for girls. I think that is great. I think I remember Sunny girl power. Yeah, there it is. There it is. So, and I remember when we had you on here that I remember Sunny going girl power, or something like that. I remember there was something. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, I think you helped pave the way for a lot of people in the beginning because you was one of the originals. So, hi, Professor Shauna Joe. I mean, obviously you got, let's see, take a class and beat the instructors. Yeah, we've had a ask John, ask Terry, ask Shauna.
Yep.
Ask a lot of them. I mean, there's a bunch of them that have taken y'all's classes and steadily spanking y'all. So, John's class worth every penny. His private Facebook page, Alex and Mike's. I asked you earlier about texture. So, yes, can Sunny explain texture? So this was one of the questions that had come out earlier today. And I know that you are also a certified judge. And I talked to Shauna earlier, and she said she also is a certified judge of recent as well. So let's talk about this real quick, because this has been an important one that he's kind of struggled with. What is texture, and what are they judging? 3 questions. What is texture? What are they judging when they say texture? And how have you overcome texture? Sunny, let's hear from you.
Honestly, the only time I've actually faltered in texture was when I was moo gluing. I'm just going to be totally honest. By taking out all the fat, it was just combining the proteins, and there was nothing to render down in there to soften the meat. And the fat adds flavor as well. So I was hurting myself by moo gluing. That's the only time I've ever actually struggled with texture. I've been dinged here or there, but I've never struggled with it. I did notice a difference from when I was salt brining to marinating. When you talk about texture, it is right when you have to cut through it. The judges will take the steak and they will cut a small little bite off. It's just a teeny little bite that we're taking. And when we cut through with that plastic knife, that's texture. That's your first experience with texture as a judge. Is it cut through, or do you have to saw at it, or that is going to be texture. And then when you take it in your mouth and you're biting it, are you having to chew it for forever? Or is it a nice bite that you can, chew through and swallow and you enjoy it? Or is it super mushy? You've had pulled pork that just ugh,
right.
that's bad texture. So,
Right.
and you can do all of those with a steak. And I've tasted all of those with a steak.
Right. Okay.
I
All right.
think what Jimmy just said there, who's a great friend of mine, has been cooking since pretty much since I've started too. So texture is always a big thing. Very subjective. You used to talk about flavor being subjective, which it is, but texture to a degree can also be subjective. And I think I remember being in Byhalia 2 or 3 years ago. We were talking to judges, and it was probably the first time that I realized how big texture is. We were all talking about how there's a fine line between a steak being a good bite and that mushy, just over textured, I guess is maybe the
mush.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And it turns to mush. And so people think you can sit there and marinate for hours, or I mean, you used to hear home cooked steaks. Oh, I marinated in the refrigerator for 24 hours. Like we maybe at home, and it's not what we use, but you can't do that, and it does turn to mush. But then there's the other side. And I think your texture depends on the steak that you have, the quality of meat as to what you do to it. I can't really say I'm going to do this for this long every single cook across the board.
Every
it's
steak
going to change.
Every steak is different.
Yeah.
Every piece of protein that comes off of that. I think there's a lot of things that I have seen, that I think that you have to do. You need to kind of know what's going on with that piece of protein before you ever even touch it. So tenderness. Let's see, John. What does he say? Tenderness and texture, two different animals. Yeah. So tenderness is one thing. I think that's how easy it takes to cut. The texture is what's that mouthfeel like? Is this mush? Does it have a good chew to it? Am I having a chew on it, or does it melt in my mouth and it's just like mush and it's not a good experience? So I think that's something, and it's not just being judged on tenderness. Yeah, it's judged on the texture of it as well.
Right.
So
and they tell you that, it's what the feel. It's the feel of it more, the feel in your, what it tastes like, what it's like in your mouth. That's I don't know. You don't want to be too tough. I've been dinged on that, but also you don't want to be so mushy that they don't know what they're eating.
Yeah. Matt Overson brought up something in his class, and you said something just a second ago, Sunny, about how easy it cuts. And Matt talks a little bit about stuff like that in his class, and there's some things that, he'll try to do sometimes to help that cut. And that's important because if it's in IBCA where we cook in barbecue, I mean, we cook for local judges off the street, and it's no picking it up like KCBS. You get the cheapest plastic fork and the cheapest plastic knife that they possibly could find, and that's what they give these judges to cut a piece of rib off or a piece of brisket off. So you better have it tender. And I would think the first thing in this, you better have it tender where it'll cut, but you don't want it to where it's going to be a piece of mush. So,
well, I can tell you too, the ones that are mush, they don't cut through. It's not a nice clean cut. It's mush.
Yeah, literally. It's like taking a piece of one of the big marshmallows and cutting through it. It's just so spongy that you don't get the clean cut because it just collapses, and then you can kind of tell right then as soon as you go cut it. Sean will tell you. I mean, I've had some really good steaks. I've had Shauna's, I've had Alan Newton's, I've had Ty's, I've had John's, I've had Matt's, I've had all these guys. Did I leave out anybody? Terry's. And I can tell right off the get-go when I go to cut that steak. I mean, these guys and gals, they're spot on getting that doneness, that tenderness, that texture right. And
I was going to say that whole, in the beginning, everyone used to put doneness and texture as everyone thinks that their scores should be fairly close on each of those. Yeah. When in reality, they're so different. And they're being judged on two different parts of the steak altogether. Right. Your doneness is on the loin, and your texture is on the spinalis. So they don't necessarily coincide with each other. So that's a lot of new cookers that come along that they think. That's a question I get a lot is why is that? My doneness was on, but texture, I got dinged in that really bad.
Yeah.
And they're two totally different things.
Totally different.
Two pieces of the meat. So doneness is, and you mentioned doneness, that's been the talk of SCA this year. I think Mike and I talked about it. It used to be taste was always the big talk, even though it is a weighted category. Doneness this year has definitely taken over all conversations, I would say.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, it's changed. It used to be more of that medium rare, and now it's back to this is a medium. This is what it's supposed to look like, and I think that's probably where that is going. So yeah, it's judged on texture, but even though it's judged on texture, the first thing is that impression is texture and tenderness. In your mind, you're going to cut it and go, man, how is the tenderness on this thing? Did it cut good? And I think that can a lot of times lead judges, and although they're not supposed to, it definitely could start skewing the texture right off the get-go. So, and just somebody asked, who cuts brisket? Well, in IBCA and BCA competition, it's not KCBS. You don't pick up a slice and be able to pick it up and eat it. You got to use a plastic fork and a knife. So, and you got to cut it, and that's what they're doing with y'all's steak. So, like Matt said, steak selection is a big part of texture. Also, that's 100% true. And there's so much that goes into this that a lot of times people may be missing it.
Yeah, you can look at a steak on that table and know before you ever touch it, before they flip it, anything, what it's going to feel like. And that's part of steak selection too. Is part of being a good cook is seeing that and also seeing what your steak is going to look like in the box. And you're having to remember,
visualize
what's going in the box. Yeah.
Yep.
So many little things.
Oh, it's a lot of stuff. It really, really is. But I think all that stuff goes in together to get that perfect score that you're getting on texture. I think all that stuff kind of adds into it, and psychologically in the back of the judge's mind. We always, like in barbecue, we eat with our eyes first, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I think it's the same exact thing with that steak. When it comes to the texture, I think they're going to also look right off the get-go. If they're sawing through that and cut, in their mind, they're already thinking the texture on this is not going to be very good.
Right.
It's just, for what little do I know. So anyway, so let's touch on this. Danny wants to know, what about impression scores, overall impression?
I was going to ask that too. To get opinions.
So overall, and touch on the overall score, and so Sunny, why don't you answer this? Give us your take on so you've done appearance, you've done doneness, you've done texture, taste, all this. How do you calculate the overall impression? What stands out the most?
So for me, I'll just quickly go through each one. Like appearance, when I open the box and I'm looking at the steak, you're only looking at the top half. And does it look like a nice steak that was prepared well? That's what I'm looking for. It automatically has a 10. If something stands out that is ugly or doesn't look right, that's when I'm going to ding you. But every steak starts out as a 10 in my opinion. And then going to doneness, there's a card. We have a card and it has to match the color. So, there is a range on a couple of those that says, 8 to 9. I'm going to go with the higher number, because how are you going to say an 8 to a 9, in that low penny range? Go with the higher number. That's it. You're giving it the benefit of the cook, because you're not cooking the steak. You're not out there, in these weather elements and everything else. I'm giving the benefit to the cook. And then on to texture, when I'm cutting it, that's, first you're looking at it and you're like, oh, I've had some steaks that have looked incredible. And I'm like, wow, this appearance is great. The doneness is spot on. This is going to be a good steak. And then you go to cut it and I can't cut through it because it's mush. And I'm like, oh, shoot. So But I'm not going to let it affect taste, because taste is something totally different than texture. Because when it hits your bite, like when it hits your mouth and you're biting it and chewing it, that's what I'm going to judge texture on. My cut and my chew. Then I'm going to go to taste, and I'm going to focus on the flavors that are coming through. Is there something that stands out? You know, is this a balanced flavor profile? Is this how a steak should taste? Do I taste the beefiness in this steak, or does this taste like, you know, it should be chopped liver? That's a totally different flavor.
Right.
And that's what I'm going to judge taste on. It's going to have the highest score, but if something, you know, is knocking it down, that's when I'm going to start taking points away. And then my overall is, would I eat this steak again? Would I love to take this steak home and eat the entire thing? That is just me. Overall is very subjective as well. You know, there's a lot of people that are like, would you pay 50 grand at a steakhouse for this steak? You know, you're going through 16 steaks super fast. So I'm not sitting there going, would I pay 50 grand for 16 steaks? No, I'm not going to do that in the first place.
Right.
But my overall is, was this appealing? Was this steak appealing to me overall? And it starts at a 10, and I go, well, the texture was a little bit off, and, you know, the taste had a back end heat. I'm getting back end heat. Okay, I'm going to give it a 9. And that's just,
it's your interpretation of what you think is good. Okay. Shauna, you agree with most of that?
Yeah, you know, most of it. And so being overall impression, being that I've, you know, cooked for since SEA has started, essentially, that has been one of the big questions that Brett and Ken get. I've questioned it over the years, and I have finally got an answer from Brett, and he would explain it so well. And you know, cookers, I think it's important to know, they always ask about overall impression, and it's when you're in there judging. Once you judge appearance, texture, doneness, taste, like once you write your score down, you can't change it. They don't want you to erase, mark out. So overall impression is just that at the end of that steak, just like Sunny said. Did it get hot at the end? Was there something about it? It's one way, I guess the way Brett explained it to me back a few years ago was, it's their way to adjust what they maybe didn't like after they were completely done with the steak. Because so many times we would have, say, 9s across the board, and then you have an 8 for overall.
Right.
It's like, well, why? Yeah. Or it's lower. Many times it was lower than all of your other scores, and so no one understands that. And it's just a way to compensate, to make up for what happened after you tasted the steak. And that's probably the taste and the texture is probably the biggest thing on that. But if you don't understand that and where overall impression comes from, it's very frustrating and very upsetting when you do well in every other category. And that's really nothing that you can change.
You can't control. Right.
You can't control that. That is totally up to an opinion of that judge. So it makes it
hard.
Yeah, it does.
Makes it hard.
But it makes sense. But you know where you're going if you understand what that means, what that category is going into a cook-off.
Yeah.
Right.
In a way, I mean, if I could just give a tip to a cooker, a way to adjust for that, because I did win a golden ticket, and then all of a sudden I started seeing my overall go down. Now, I came from Arizona and I came over here. Do I change my flavor profile? No, but I started asking for feedback. So I would have, these experienced cookers try my steak, and I said, what do you taste? Is there anything that you would do differently? I'm not kidding you. Almost all of them said there's a back end heat. Like, it was perfectly balanced, and they're like, this is great and stuff. And then like a minute later, they're like, I got a back end heat. And I was like, got it. I know. So I went back and I took out one of my rubs. I did not completely change my flavor profile.
Right.
Yeah.
It's little tweaks.
I tweaked a minor tweak to make that. And my overall started going back up again. So I knew that that's what was leading to it. But if you can get people that are experienced in steak cooking to, taste it for you and stuff, that's going to help you in any area.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what, and that's why the ones of us that have cooked for so long, we walk around and we get questions. And especially us that have the classes, on Barbecue Champs, like we want to teach, we want to help everyone. Some of us are better in different areas, some are better on the taste side. Everyone, I used to trim steaks, in our little group, like everybody comes to me about trimming. Just, we all have our little niche of, areas that we are probably better at.
Right.
But just being able to talk to someone, and ask those questions. And that's what we love to do. And we've been around for a while and have seen the ups and downs, the changes, just everything, the shape of the steak. That's changed every year. Like I was telling Mike that flavor used to change, and it was changed every year. Then the shape of the steak. Now we're done this, so I think it's like every category through the years, since 2015, like
it's always
something
changing.
Has changed, and you have to pick up on what everyone is doing and figure out what's winning, because the judges, I mean, even though they can judge on their own, you're gonna start seeing a trend.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Well, that's some great information, ladies. I'll tell you right now, two of the best right here. The OG and the new up and coming. I'm telling you. And Shauna, I tell you what, Shauna, you haven't got a chance to cook a whole lot in the last year and probably in the last year.
No, I've probably done I've definitely done less than the last year and a half.
But
I know I haven't had a chance to meet her yet.
I know it.
This is our meeting.
I know it. So and that's why I was like, this is gonna be a great time. So, but the cook-offs that you have done this year, I know that it seems like every time you come back and post, you always had a top 10. So how many cook-offs have you done this year?
Gosh, I probably haven't done, but maybe 12 this year. It's just been a crazy year. And so I was going to hit the road pretty hard towards the end, especially after COVID stopped us for a while. I didn't have my ticket at the time. So I was like, well, we're going to hit the road and do it. And then when I started cooking again, I think I've walked in most all of them, maybe at 2 or 3 that I haven't. I think the biggest one this year was when we cooked the strip steak down at Chandler that I got 5th in, and I hadn't cooked since like October.
Right. Yeah, it was a long time.
Or whenever. But yeah, and it was pretty exciting in Byhalia, which I know Sunny's husband and daughter were there, and so I didn't and she wasn't able to meet her, but that's when you walk in a big crowd, cooks like that, is really, really exciting. So
right. Well, I know you've done good. I don't know. I know you've probably cooked 10 or 12, but I bet you out of those 10 or 12,
it hasn't been many. But
I bet you've walked with probably at least 7 or 8 of them. Oh my
gosh! We're
gosh!
go together next year and
y'all
everybody.
Yeah, y'all better watch out. Oh my goodness, they're gonna be trying to take y'all out. So, oh goodness gracious!
That's what we like. That's why I wear the shirt that I wear.
Yeah.
I have koozies. I have cups.
Cups and everything else.
I love that. When girls and that was the whole point of when I started, like we talked about, of there weren't many girls cooking, and so when I hit the road, it was fun, and I was like, more girls need to do this. My daughter did it for a little while when she was 4 and 5, and she's decided she just wants to cook my extra steak now, and she doesn't want to compete. But I'm hoping when she gets older, but I love seeing all the females starting to get out there and cook, and the kids, all the kids. It's the next generation. It's what
absolutely.
We want. I love that SCA changed the age to 13, because
me too, because then my daughter can start.
And it allows them to do, they want to cook a steak just like mom and dad do. So it's a wonderful thing, and so I strive to always encourage more women and girls to get out there. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. And plus, it intimidates the guys. So
yeah, it does.
Get out there.
Oh, yes, it does intimidate the guys. Man, oh man, oh man. There's going to be a shocker that's going to be coming here pretty soon. A lot of you don't know about. Shauna knows about it, and a few of the other ones with Barbecue Champs. But I'm telling you, just remember those words that you just heard. It is definitely
intimidation.
Yes, like oh my gosh, I've got to cook against her. So anyway, yeah, y'all will find it. It's coming.
If guys can do it, girls can do it better, right?
That's exactly
right.
Don't
challenge us.
Cha-ching! That's Jeff Moody. He'll tell you. So I know a lot of people have been asking some questions, and I know there was some stuff that I think it was Ron had asked on picking out the steak at the beginning. But I think a lot of Matt's answered a few questions in a couple. And so what makes the steak look? Here was the question. So what makes the steak look like the texture won't be right? But several people have kind of chimed in on that question as well. We still have about 10 minutes or so, and I think I just saw. Matt Overson says, y'all keep talking, I'm learning something. So he's probably got his notebook and computer out, and he'll be back recording this. But do y'all want to kind of answer that maybe on your own? What do you look for on a steak that you can kind of tell? Jimmy said on the table the muscle fibers look tight.
And I think that and I don't know I can't see the comments, but the color of the steak.
Okay.
To me, you can tell. The dark, rich color. You can just tell the fibers are already splitting a little bit, but just that dark, rich, reddish, I don't know what real color you want to call that.
Right.
But it totally looks, in some steaks, the spinalis looks like that and the loin does not. So, a lot of them. So it's, but that's pretty much just eyeing, like when you're looking at a table full of 30 steaks, to me that's more of what I would look for. I see, your eyes drawn to that color,
and then marbling, you want to have a good marbling in the spinalis. They're not going to be eating the loin; they're going to be eating the spinalis. So look for it in the spinalis, because I've had cookers come up to me and go, "Look at the marbling in the loin," and I'm like,
yeah, I'm not eating that.
That's awesome for at home, but
that's right. You're not eating it.
Not for here.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Matt, I see
age look.
It's age look.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got that age look.
Yeah, it's like a crimson color.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a little bit darker, and then you don't want that stitching fat in there, because that's also it won't render down, and it creates a tough chew.
Yeah, so more than likely it's a little piece of gristle that ran through it.
Things.
Yep. If you see a line of fat, it's more than likely a gristle, and it is going to bite you in the butt. I guarantee you. You're not going to render that gristle out. So you don't cook it long enough to break it down. I do know a little bit about this stuff because I'm a barbecue guy. So, but you gotta break it down. You gotta render it, and even though you're cooking it at 500, 600, 700 degrees, whatever you may do, you're not going to render it down in that short a time. So it's just a tough piece. It's just a tough piece of. It's just a piece of gristle.
Even the look of the fat, you can see hard, thick fat that doesn't render, but the softer fat is going to render. It's just like in barbecue.
Yep, exactly.
On your brisket, you don't want a thick, fat, huge, hard layer. You want it pliable because that's going to render better.
All right, spinalis or tri-hearts, do y'all have preference on those?
What's the loaded question of the night?
Yeah, it's always. You know what?
I do spinalis. I do spinalis. I haven't nailed the tri-heart yet, so that's
I'm
just
such
me.
A try. I do tries.
Yeah, Shauna likes the tries.
My eyes just drawn to it, and it is definitely harder to work with, harder to get done this, but I just, if there's a good try on the table, I'm picking it. And I just, that's part of, I think, being able to cook and just adjust to what there is. And but it's definitely, I've heard a lot of people. Some people have moved from tries to spinalis or opposite. It's your preference.
It's gonna put. If you don't have, if you see a spinalis Right. If you see a
Right.
spinalis that's
Yes.
over there that's just absolutely loaded with marbling, I'm
Absolutely.
sorry. You're going to,
You
as
might pick it.
yeah, you're going to go, I'm
Yes.
taking that one right there because that baby
Yes.
right there is going to be money. So,
I think, and I like both, but
Right.
when there's a good try on the table too, that's where my eye goes. So.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Seth says he lives and dies by the
Yeah.
try. Absolutely. So, Sonny, do you do a practice steak?
I do. I
do a
do
practice
because it tells me a lot of factors, a lot of variables, how temperature is playing into it, weather conditions, if I have enough charcoal, how the steak is actually going to cook itself, because I try to get two steaks that are pretty similar. Even if I'm first pick on the table and I have to pick last the second time around, I'm still going to try to get two that are pretty similar. I'm not going to pick a tri-heart and a spinalis and cook a tri-heart as a practice. I'm going to get an ugly looking spinalis and see how it cooks.
Right.
And that's just me because I won't be turning it in.
Right.
It's just going to give me things that can fine tune my turn-in steak.
Yeah. Wow. What about you, Shauna? Do you cook a practice steak?
Well, I think everybody knows I am a one steak turn in. I have done that for 2 years now, and I would say the only one I've cooked a practice steak was when I cooked a strip this year. But and I totally understand why people cook, and I did for 3 years.
Right.
I cooked practice. It just I had a talk with actually it was Jason Mazonik a few years ago, and after talking, we discussed it and how. So I just have a different outlook on that and take on that. So if I don't get two pretty much identical steaks, and depending on the cook-off, you're not going to get that.
Right.
You've been to some and you're totally different. So my thought on that is if I don't have two identical steaks or very, very close, thickness, shape.
It's true.
What are we doing a practice for? Now, this is strictly my opinion, and this is just what I do. But what are we doing it for? Because at that point, you can't judge on doneness because every piece of meat is going to cook differently.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't do texture because it's two totally pieces of different loins,
Right.
possibly
Right.
two different loins, two different parts of the loin, of the roll. I mean, but so unless you're doing like taste, a new taste flavor, a profile that you're working on. So that's why then I would do a practice at that point. But otherwise, I very seldom get or have recently, I have not gotten the same. And so, and I overthink, I overthink it. I do a practice. It turns out beautiful and perfect. And then you almost second guess and you're like,
Right.
oh, why didn't I turn in my practice steak?
Right. Right.
Because they do cook different. So that's my take. It's just reduces that, I pick the one I'm going to turn in and go with it.
Done.
Now,
Yep.
I always do trim and get the other one ready.
Get them prepped. Right.
In case something crazy happens and I
Right.
need that second one. But, for 2 years, I have cooked one steak and turned it in. And now,
that's OG right there, baby. That's OG. All you guys out there cooking two,
right.
Shauna will walk up there and cook one. So, oh man, that's money right there. I don't care who you are. That's rolling in with some confidence right there. That's what that is. So Jimmy says, drop a steak one time, you'll never cook another practice steak. Yeah, you're probably right. So
it's just comfort.
Is.
Some people are comfortable doing a practice. I'm just not. I'm just not going to do it. And now my 8-year-old daughter cooks my extra steaks at cook-offs. So
there you go.
It gives her something.
Jeff and I are completely different too because he doesn't cook a practice steak, but I do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just how you roll,
you're
whatever you're
comfortable
comfortable
with.
with.
It
Absolutely.
really, really is, So, people ask a lot of times all these different questions, even for us barbecue guys, and I don't practice a whole lot. It's me. My taste doesn't matter. It's what I put in front of a judge. So, we don't cook a lot. I cook 3 racks of ribs. I cook one. People are like, how many chickens you cook? I cook. One whole chicken, two halves. What if you mess up? Don't mess up.
That's right.
Cook 2 halves.
Just be confident what you're doing.
And be done. And I have never cooked 2 chickens. I've always cooked 1 chicken, and I got 2 halves, and that's it. So let's see. We cook 10, and Shauna will still kick our butts.
That's part of it. You struggle with fire. You struggle with everything makes a difference, but you just keep going. You just deal with it. And
you do it. It's what you get comfortable
confident.
practicing doing. I have always cooked my one chicken. I'm happy cooking one chicken, and I'm going to cook it to perfection.
That's right.
When you have one steak and you have that mindset going in, I'm going to cook this one steak,
and that's all.
And that's going to be it. And I don't worry about that other one sitting over there. I promise you this: that crutch sitting over there in that pan. Here's my other one. I guarantee a lot of people would go, I can do this and I can do it right. I don't have to try all this stuff. Unless if you're getting that same steak that your practice was, as your cook is off the same loin, probably really close to the same area. It's not going to cook exactly the same. So, and so I think that maybe is one of the biggest mistakes that people make. That they sometimes can overthink it. It's just, control what you control. That's what John will say in his class. We posted that earlier. Control what you can control. I can control this. I've got it. I've got my grates. I've got my fire. I don't have to worry about in 20 minutes or 30 minutes from now when I cook, where's my fire going to be?
Oh, yeah.
I think it is a good approach. For a seasoned pro like that young lady right there, yes, if you're new and you're up and coming, like you, Sonny, you're learning. Yeah, and she didn't start off that way, but you may find in a year, 2 years, I'm comfortable. I know my cooking process. I can cook this one steak, and I'm going to try this and see what happens.
I think it just doesn't allow you to, for me, it doesn't allow me to relax on that cook.
Yeah.
Because if I know I've got that practice, it's kind of just like, well, no, I know this other one's over here in the pan waiting on me, to cook. And so this is it, and this is what's it, and that other one's it's not good. I don't need to turn that one in unless something happens. So it's just for me, I don't overthink, and then two, I don't relax. Like when it's cook time, it's cook time.
It's game time. That's it.
And everybody knows.
I think for me, like Shauna was saying, it's not going to adjust your flavor, and it's not going to adjust your texture or doneness or anything like that. For me, coming from Arizona, things cook differently out here than they do in Arizona. Yeah. So coming from a super hot climate to over here, I'm still learning how to adjust to, the humidity. And
you got a 17% humidity. Yes, the humidity will play a factor in it. You got to adjust and get used to that. So
so on the super rainy days, I'm like, oh, this is cooking. My smoker is cooking different, or my grill. My grill is cooking different than it is on my practice at home. So that's pretty much what I use a practice steak for, is to dial in my grill and my cook for the day. So it's not going to change flavor. It's not going to change doneness, texture, taste, none of that. But it is, it's going to help me control my grill better until I learn that. Like Shauna has done this for years and knows this is how you do it.
I mean, like I said, it is what you're comfortable with. Nathan, he said, hey, I cook a practice steak. John, I know cooks a practice. Almost everybody cooks a practice steak, and there's nothing wrong with it if it's just you're trying to get your grill marks down, your timing, all of that stuff down. Yeah, that is perfect for that. But
absolutely,
at the same time, if you can control great temperatures, and you've put that steak on the same, everything's done the same, your fire's done the same, it's pretty much well going to give you the same result, even if you're just cooking the one steak. I mean, I'm like a machine. When I cook my chicken, I got one chicken. I've got my grill fired up. I've cooked on a 22-inch WSM, or either I'll use Mark Lambert's Red Box. And I mean, I've got my fire done. I've run my temperature. I've got a probe in it. I'm running my temperature within 5 degrees the whole cook. And I know I can put it on. I know how I'm going to rotate it. I do the same every single time. And I get the same results every time when that chicken comes. Usually it's always going to be cooking. I'm cooking an hour-long chicken. And usually within 5 minutes every time, it hits its spot. It's done.
Yeah. And I think that's what, once you're comfortable cooking with everyone, there's so many different cookers and grills out there now that, that everybody's different, and some people are trying new grills at a cook-off. And not at home. So we all have different reasons for what we do. And then I saw old Danny there ask about my grill that's been run over, and I still use it. So we I've had to weld it back together, and the old PK Classic's still rocking and
Keeps
rolling.
on rolling. That's
But
exactly
it's
right.
it's just what we're comfortable with.
It is.
I wouldn't even change my grates for in the grill. I've still got the original ones because it's like they're terrible looking, but
Right.
it's
You don't cook
I've
on
been
them.
consistent, so it's
Right.
hard.
You
to
don't want to
change
change
is
nothing.
hard.
You don't want to change
It's
nothing.
very
That's
hard.
exactly right.
Yeah.
What do y'all think about doing these doubles and triples? Danny just brought that question up, and I know
Oh,
that's,
gosh.
man, a lot. I know there's a triple this weekend. Aren't you going to, Shauna?
I am. Yep, in Graham. So when SCA started, there was no such thing as a double, much less a triple or a quad. So when I ran for points, we went every single weekend, and we traveled to go cook one steak.
Mm-hmm.
It's and this could roll into a whole nother hour of conversation that we've talked about.
Well, we'll have to get y'all back on for that.
But I honestly, a double for me is okay. A triple is I don't know. It's just a little much,
I agree.
I don't know. I don't even know how to explain the mindset that you're there. You want to have fun. Yes, you want to cook, but you're just so consumed with cooking when you're there for a triple that there's maybe because I'm a social butterfly when it comes to cooks, and so I want to go around.
Too.
I want to see my friends. I don't get to see these people except for at cook-offs.
Right.
And that's not really maybe a good reason to not like them.
Right.
But I don't know. It's just a lot. If it were anything, I would say doubles,
Right.
but not everywhere I go.
Right.
And the other part of like this weekend, it's like, well, I don't really want to cook 3, but I'm going to be there. So I might as well cook them all. Like, because I'll walk around and, so it's hard seeing everyone else cook and I'm not.
Right.
But
sense.
Otherwise, and I think Sunny's agreeing that it just, we like to talk to people and hang out.
Right.
So.
You feel the same, Sunny? Same way with you?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, it's and you're right. I mean, barbecue or steak, it's all about our family, and it does give us that chance. We come together, we want to be able to visit people as well. So, I want to cook. And that's
our only chance to do that. Exactly.
Yeah. But like Matt says, it makes for a long day on your feet doing a triple.
Yes, it does, because you never sit down anyways, generally. I know I don't. But especially on doubles and triples, and he's done so, many more than I have on that doubles and triples and quads. But I would say, and I get everybody's wanting to make the most, the promoters, and it's good. I mean, everybody likes it. I just would prefer a double. If you're going to go multiples, just stop at a double. You still have time for the fun and
everybody being
and what
around.
you're there. You're
creating that SCA family that everybody talks about.
Right.
You can't create
those new cooks.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a whole bunch of new cooks at a cook-off, they don't have time to come and ask questions.
Nope.
Right.
I mean, they're on their feet just going and going. And me personally, like, I'm not out there to sweep every single week. I want to be able to help the new cooks and get them enthused about cooking and trying new things and help them feel confident in their skills and enjoy this, because that's what it's about, having fun and cooking a steak. So
and that's a big part of it. That's been the joke with Terry, Roan, and Danny and all them. They laugh at me all the time because I'll be off hanging out somewhere and talking,
Jeff does that to me too. Like, where's Sunny?
And where are you? And then everybody's starting fires and I haven't started yet, and so they laugh at me, and then I come running over there to start my fire. And so
now we know why Shauna cooks the one steak. I don't have time to cook two. I'm getting over there and I get my grill.
Right.
That's it. So
but it's
anyway.
fun, but it's fun to walk around and help people.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not like, we're not walking around asking, it's just you walk up and start talking and and you get into those conversations and you pick each other's brains, and we learn. I learned something. I've been cooking for 5 years in SCA, but I learned something from anybody that I talk to, new or old cook. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, I tell you what, it has been an absolute fabulous show tonight. See, I'm using that female fabulous.
That's right.
So anyway, But I do appreciate both of y'all being on here. Sunny, it was certainly a pleasure to have you on Barbecue Champs Academy.
Thank you.
I hope it wasn't too much of a surprise that we had Miss Shauna, but I thought this would
I
be
think
really
it's awesome.
I think it would be really great. I would love to have y'all on again, and maybe we get some more female cookers. I know the guys really are probably scared to death to admit it, but they probably would like to have more female cookers, but at the same time they're probably going,
Oh, yeah.
just not really. But anyway, but also we do want to support. Once again, all of our sponsors, we couldn't do these shows without it. Once again, hats off to all them. Be Extreme Barbecue, Papa Joe's Grilling Supply, and Sean, I know they're part of sponsoring you as well.
Absolutely,
and
yes.
so Jason's just a great guy, and
great
we
people.
certainly want to give those guys props. But I ask everybody, please support all of these sponsors: B&B Charcoal, Lone Star Barbecue Pro Shop, Texas Pepper Jelly, Gunnar Wilhelm knives, some of the best knives I've ever seen in my life. I've got to do a video on those as well.
Very good knives.
Tapaque, man, I tell you what, if y'all haven't tried it, that little Tapaque is amazing. It's wireless. And it is so awesome on reading temps and stuff. And Kel with Barbecue News Magazine. We've had a great show tonight. I've enjoyed it. I hope everybody else has. I think we've got most all the questions answered. Just a few. Love seeing all of our family. Great show. Yeah, it's been a great show. Marissa, we're going to have to get you on here too next, girl. I'm telling you what, this is a young up-and-coming cooker. This is Matt Overson's sister. Yep. And this girl jumped on the scene here like, I don't know where she come from. She's like, y'all better get out of the way. I'm coming through. And I asked Matt the other day, and I was like, so he said, she don't even tell me what she's doing, man. She's got her own stuff. And I was like, she's not cooking here? It's like, She said, she won't even tell me what she's doing. So anyway, but I've had a great time tonight, ladies, and I appreciate y'all being on. I hope everybody's enjoyed our show. Don't forget, on Monday night at 7 o'clock, catch the Arcasippy Smoke live show with Mr. Hottie Toddy himself, Ronald Burns, and John Lindsay. They do a phenomenal job. We hope that you'll continue to come back and join us again on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Central. We do steak, we do barbecue. It's just all about learning, because you can learn a lot of stuff even from the barbecue guys, and you'll never be surprised at what you can learn from even from the steak stuff as well, of how some of the things you might pick up on. So anyway, we've had a lot of fun, and as we always say on Barbecue Champs when we close out one of our great classes, have a lot of fun and smoke on.